Hey guys, Tegan back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about the eye of Tulip, Irresistible Grace. So without further ado, let's get into the video. We've spent the last few weeks talking about the Tulip acronym. We're pretty close to being done. We only have 2 points of the acronym left. Today we're talking about the second to the last point, Irresistible Grace. An irresistible grace sounds like exactly what it is, namely that God's grace is irresistible. There's nothing you can do to run from it. There's nothing you can do to overpower it. You can't you can't force yourself out of it. You cannot hide from it. We're going to be reading in the book of John. It's a kind of the same few passages we've been going over the last few weeks. We're going to start in John 37, and then we're going to skip some verses, and we're going to make our way down to John 44. We're in chapter 6, by the way. John chapter 6, verse 37 reads, "All that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will certainly not cast out." There's some important things to emphasize here. Number one, all that the Father gives to me. We go on to read in John 10 that this all it's referring to is the sheep, from the sheep and the shepherd narrative there. The all that it's referring to is the sheep. All the sheep that the Father gives the good shepherd will come to him. And the one who comes to me, I will certainly not cast out. All that come have been given to him. We skip down to verse 44 and we read, "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day." Now, we certainly do see a parallel between 37 and 44. Number one, they're both, all that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will not cast out. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day. So we have a truth, a hard truth to swallow, followed by a hope, followed by a promise. The hard truth to swallow there is that God's grace is irresistible. You can't force it. There's nothing you can do to run from it. It's irresistible. The hope in 37 is, "And the one who comes to me, I will certainly not cast out." We apply that same framework to verse 44. The hard truth is that no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. His grace draws him. And I will raise him up on the last day. That last part is the hope. And I will raise him up on the last day. Now, this narrative is seen throughout the entirety of Scripture, including both the Old and the New Testaments. In Ezekiel chapter 37, we get this picture of a valley of dry bones that God brings alive. That is very much like our spiritual natures. Prior to Christ, we were dead in our trespasses and sin. The Father draws us to him. As it says in 44, "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him." The Father draws us to him. In that drawing, much like the valley of dry bones in Ezekiel 37, we are brought to life. And the emphasis here really should be placed on the gospel. That he made him who knew no sin to become sin on our behalf, so that we may be made the righteousness of God in him. All of this should be focused on all of this needs to be emphasized, put on the gospel. That's where we find our hope. Furthermore, there are some, when talking about the irresistible grace of God, they will take a look at the Lazarus narrative, the Lazarus story. We read in John, I'm flipping to it right now. I'm getting there. Sorry for... John chapter 11, the Lazarus narrative, where Jesus tells them to remove the stone, and then he, with a loud voice, says, "Lazarus, come forth." Some have been very wise to point out that our spiritual state, we are told that we have been made dead in our trespasses and sin without Christ. A dead man cannot rescue himself. Much like a dead man cannot rescue himself, spiritually, we cannot rescue ourselves. A dead man can't decide to be alive. We can't decide to be spiritually alive. It takes God's irresistible grace coming into the picture, much like when he yelled, "Lazarus, come forth." Like I said earlier, if God's grace is irresistible, there's nothing you can do to run from it. There is nothing you can do to hide or to overpower it. You can't outwit it. You can't do anything to get around it. And that's a beauty. Now, some have objected to this principle on the grounds that this would insinuate or show God overpowering the free will of man. And I'll just be honest with you. I don't really get that objection, primarily because I don't place as much an emphasis on free will as other Christians might. I believe we don't have autonomous libertarian free will because our will is either enslaved to sin or it's enslaved to Christ. But I'll give respect to those who have this view. There are many great theologians and philosophers and apologists who have this view. Now, I do think one thing this view is doing is that it's viewing God through a human lens. It's anthropomorphizing. I think I said that right. God. Because we inherently know that when a man forces his will upon a woman and violates her, we know there's something morally wrong. When a man imposes his will on another man and harms him, we know there is something inherently wrong with that. So we transpose that principle upon God. When God imposes his will upon us, some of us would say, "No, you can't do that." Slow your roll there for a second. Because in that, we are making the presupposition that God is like man, that his very being, his very essence is like man. But I would say that God is ontologically different than man. God doesn't change. The fancy theological word for that is he's immutable. He doesn't change. We are human beings. Yet, that doesn't make sense because we don't exist within a state of being. We are constantly becoming. We are constantly going through different stages of development. God, on the other hand, he is a being. He exists within himself. He's not reliant on any other thing for his existence. So when he, quote unquote, imposes his will on his creation, it's not the same as a man imposing his will on another man. Those are categorically two different things. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please join me next week as we talk about the P, or the TULIP acronym, the perseverance of the saints. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do all of the YouTube stuff, like, commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you guys next week.